Okay, we are now live, and I'd like to welcome everyone that is watching the live stream to our September Sherwood School Board meeting. And for those of you that are in the audience and presenting, thank you for being here. And with that, we'll go ahead and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. And before we move on to the consent agenda, there was one omission from our agenda, and that is the addition of board reports that would go under reports after the ASB student representative. So if everyone is amenable to that on the board, we will go ahead and make that adjustment.
Madam Chair, it's currently listed as number 8.
Oh, did I miss it?
We revised it
Oh.
after that was noted.
Okay, then I will stand corrected. Are we fine with leaving it as 8? Okay, I apologize for not seeing that. Okay, we'll move on to the consent agenda.
Madam Chair, I move that we adopt the consent agenda as presented.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, consent agenda is passed. So we will move on to one of our very favorite times of the year, and that is Spotlight On and hearing about the first days of school. So without Ms. Salm, the podium is all yours. Thank you.
Good evening, Superintendent Cordy, Board Chair Hecker, and board members. Thank you for this opportunity to share what has been happening at Hawksview the past couple of weeks. As you know, on August 30th, we welcomed back staff, and it was so good to see all 68 of them in person. The noise of staff sharing stories and laughing together was just music to my ears. We launched our week by watching the video created by Heather and Christine, and I just want to say that that video captured our story, our struggles, and our successes of the last year and a half. It was filled with raw emotions of loss and strong feelings of achievement from all stakeholders. And for staff, it was a reminder of what they had overcome and accomplished. And it served as a source of encouragement and strength that we did that and we got this. So thank you for taking time to create that runway and to launch our school year. The staff worked hard then all week to create a fun and welcoming environment for our students to return, and return they did on September 9th. We welcomed 480 Hawks to school. Though we did lots of planning and prepping for our first full day with students, it was still a little bumpy. It was a day of trial and error for sure, but the smiling eyes and the sounds of laughter in students' voices made everything feel okay. I'm thankful for a staff that's flexible and collaborative and willing to try new things, and students who catch on really quickly to routines, and Thursday went much smoother. As long as it doesn't rain, we'll be good. So we're worried about Friday. This Monday was our first full day with all students. That's kindergarten and pre-K. And the first day for younger learners can be a little tough. Some of them just have a hard time leaving their parents. And it was clear that I was going to need some help with one little guy who had his arms tightly wrapped around his mom. And after several failed attempts to invite him into school, we enlisted the help of his big brother. And I can't describe how heartwarming it is to see an older brother who's just 7 himself take the hand of his 4-year-old brother and walk him into the school. This past week, as I've walked the halls and popped into classrooms, I had several moments of pause. Like, is this really happening? It's like a puzzle where last year we had that frame all put together, but there were still so many missing pieces. And what I discovered this week is we're finding the missing pieces. If I could, I would have a picture show right now, but hopefully my words can create the images for you. So I walked by the music room and I could hear singing. I could hear bells. I stopped and I went into the room. What a beautiful sound. A missing piece of the puzzle was found. Kids are getting music. Walking through the gym, which was a shortcut last year, students are skipping, galloping, dancing, laughing, and having a great time. Another piece of the puzzle back in place. And just yesterday, I strolled through the Learning Hub like so many other days, but this day was different. There were actually students in every nook and cranny sitting on furniture with their noses in books. So sweet, so surreal. Another piece in place. And today, I was taking a student to class and I could hear a fourth grade class chanting, STEM, STEM, STEM. They were so excited to get to their new special. It seems like everywhere I look, teachers are teaching, students are learning, working together and having fun. All the missing pieces are coming back together, and what a beautiful puzzle it's creating. I look forward to completing that puzzle this school year. Thank you. Next up, we have Ms. Johnson from Ridges.
Thank you.
Good evening, Dr. Cordy, Board Chair Hecker, Board of Directors. It's a great honor to be here tonight to share with you a little bit about our first days of school back at the Ridges. As I was reflecting on the past week and a half, I couldn't help but be thankful for all of the many small things that prior to COVID, I honestly really took for granted. One such thing is even just the opportunity to be here tonight to share with you a little bit about our first days at school. Over the last 6 days with students, I have made it my focus to take in as many of these little moments as I possibly can and to appreciate them in a way that I have never done before. During these first days of school, I have enjoyed providing building tours to our families prior to the start of school so they could see our space and our transformation in our building. Watching students walk to class all dressed up in their new clothes with their new backpacks and their new shoes. Listening to giggles and laughters from students on the playground and at lunch, visiting classrooms to see science experiments, connection activities, math games, and read-alouds, students learning for full days without Zoom or devices, hot lunch choices, and excited K-1 students getting a chance to have real school lunch for the very first time. Custodians happily supporting furniture moves, desk and table adjustments, and just about everything else we've thrown their way. Bus drivers delivering our students to and from school safely every single day. Our district tech team thoughtfully supporting the return of all elementary devices back to their classrooms after a very long 18 months away. Office staff helping with scraped knees and bee stings and phone calls home at the end of the day when kids aren't really sure where they're headed. Music classes with drumming that can be heard all the way down the hall. Students participating in our new STEM classes and having competitions to see who can create the longest paper chains. In-person PE with real PE equipment and students safely learning how to play distanced recess games. Libraries full of books and schedules being created for in-person library checkout. Teachers and staff reassuring worrying students and comforting kids who are just stepping into our buildings for the very first time. And sweet conversations with students as I spend time out and about in our building. One such conversation was with a third grade student who made me smile when she shared that while she doesn't miss Zoom at all, she does miss that sometimes her teacher could just press mute and everyone would be quiet and they could listen to the directions right away. Another student shared with me that coming to school in person this year is the very best part of his whole 5 years of life. And a final student shared that being back with her friends at school has filled her heart with more joy than opening presents on Christmas morning. And I can't say that I disagree with her. As we continue into the weeks ahead, I have no doubt that there will be challenges and even some hard days, but it's my greatest hope that we will never again take for granted the little things that make our school so special. Having students back in person at the Ridges is one of the greatest gifts that I could have ever received this fall, and I can't wait to see what amazing things happen for our staff and students this year. Next up is Adam Mitchell from the high school.
Thank you.
I don't get to do that very often. Welcome, Superintendent, or thank you, Superintendent Cordy, Chair Hecker, Board of Directors. I just want to say that this has been the best week, last week and moving forward of, my personal career, getting to open this new high school. And so I'm so excited to talk to you about, what that looked like. And it was unbelievable. It was just an unreal week getting to have that building and have it full of kids, and a dream that we've had for 3 to 4 years, and finally to have it come true. And so it's just the pride and the excitement on our staff's faces, on our kids, the excitement from them was just, it was so contagious and so wonderful. We started with 30 new changes in our building with staff members, and that's an unreal amount, unprecedented, and you would have never known if you walked into the building. Our new teachers picked up, with where their predecessors had left. The veteran teachers embraced them and helped them out as they were going, and so to see the collaboration with our staff was unbelievable. But what made it the most exciting was having all those kids in there. And so on Thursday, we started with our 9th graders, with our Link crew. About 425 freshmen came into the building, their first day in high school. We talked during our in-service week. It was their first day all together since they were in 7th grade. And so just to think of what they look like in 7th grade to what they look like now in 9th grade was unbelievable, and to see them all come back. And so we had a revised day, had to change some things that we normally do with Link crew, but it was so wonderful to have them all there. And then Thursday, the whole school showed up, and we all know how the morning went with traffic. You may have heard, but we're working through that, and it's working itself out. But to see the halls so full and kids hustling to class and trying to do all the right things, and their excitement and their desire to be there and to go to class and do all the things they need to do. I was really struck with the idea that so much has changed since 18 months ago, and really nothing had changed. Our kids are just, they're the best. They can't be beat. And so the excitement from them was, like I said, it was unbelievable. One thing we have with this building that we hadn't had before, we're having lunches outside. And I know, that's part of with the COVID stuff, we're trying to do that, but I think it would happen anyway. And we have the terraced area out and back that overlooks the football field, and we have the courtyard in between the two wings. And just to see the whole area full of kids and laughing and enjoying and being out in the sun, and it was definitely a highlight of quite a few people's week. A couple things that came up that I just wanted to highlight, some things that were told to me by staff. One kid, they talked about, they were doing a little project where they were ripping paper to do some sentence stems. And this kid, for whatever reason, was struggling to rip his paper. And he looked at the teacher and he goes, "It just feels so good to be doing this, even though I'm terrible." And all he was doing was ripping paper, and he was so excited. Just some comments, kids, this year is going to be awesome. Again, it feels so good. Thank you to the teachers. They're just, the kids are always the easy part, and they prove it every single day. And two teachers talked about the kids that they had online that they'd never seen their face came up and introduced themselves because they wanted to make that connection in person that they'd made online. And that was happening over and over. And my favorite one that I got to see was in the culinary arts class. There was a heated debate, which everybody was excited to do in person, about what is a better dessert, cake or brownie? And it was intense, but it was so exciting to see them all doing it in person. So it was a wonderful week at the high school. Thank you for letting us share. I'll now introduce Ms. Funderhyde from SMS.
Good evening. So board members and Superintendent Cordy and Chair Hecker, thank you for this opportunity to share some of the events of the first few days and first weeks of school. So prior to the official return to school, we had the opportunity to host some orientations for students and families so that they could come into the building, walk through their schedules, try their lockers, familiarize themselves with this new building. We dedicated a total of 25 hours that week. And of course, for those that still had conflicts with the times, we tried to meet their needs the following week. It was well worth the time, and it was great to see families in the building, and hopefully we alleviated some of the anxiety for some of our students. However, I do have to say that during that following week, we may have given some students a misinterpretation or misrepresentation of what lunches would look like. Because see, that same week was our staff in service. So we had the commons all set up, tablecloths, live plants, candy on the tables, side snacks on the tables. It was all the works. So our counseling secretary, Suzanne Gilmer, was walking a student through their schedule and through the building. When they passed through the commons, the student paused, stopped, looked at the setup, and commented, "Wow, this is a really fancy lunch." Suzanne quickly had to inform him, "Oh, honey, no. It won't look like this for your lunches." On Wednesday, September 8th, the hallways filled with energy and excitement and some nerves as we welcomed back 371 sixth graders. We had leadership students helping the sixth graders navigate the building, get to their classes, answer questions, and help with lockers. A seventh grade teacher shared with me her perspective of the day. When we received the invitation to wear #ArcherStrong t-shirts on the first day of school for our sixth graders, I got to practice having a flexible mindset. Ever the team player, I put aside my desire to wear a cute new dress and dug out my boxy t-shirt and some pants that hopefully matched. Before even making it into school from the parking lot, I was so glad I chose to wear the t-shirt. It turned out that everyone accepted this invitation and came to school decked out in their Sherwood Strong t-shirts, administrators, teachers, classified staff, and counselors. But most importantly, our leadership kids. Oh my goodness, we were this beautiful black and white sea of Sherwood Strong, lining the halls, united in welcoming the sixth graders to the building. Any which way a sixth grader looked, there was someone in a black and white t-shirt willing to help. What a lifeline that must have been for the students, and what a wonderful reminder of what it means to be on a team. I felt both invigorated to be part of this team, as well as a genuine sense of belonging. We really are #Sherwood Strong. The excitement tripled as our 393 seventh graders and 403 eighth graders joined us the following day. There has been such a spirit of wanting to be back, a desire to learn, and an excitement to be with their peers. We have a few things to iron out still. However, overall, it has been a strong start to the school year. And I think it's really worth noting that September 9th was a long-awaited day. And by that, I mean finally being able to launch our large comprehensive middle school with 2 staffs coming together and all 1,167 middle school students being in the building at one time. It's been so rewarding to finally enjoy the moment that we've been looking forward to for months. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Woolman.
Good evening, Dr. Cordy, Chair Hecker, and Board of Directors. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this evening. As my colleagues have said, September 8th was a day that we have been waiting for 18 months. actually almost 2 years, really, a real first day of school where we welcomed in all of our first through fifth graders and a third of our kindergarten students on that day. Yes, on Monday, we had our entire school present, including our 63 little kindergarten ponies that we've added to our corral. The energy has been incredibly high. The first day of school, that first morning, was filled with lots of hugs, photographs with Mustang Sally, fist bumps and high fives, and lots of laughter, mostly from the parents who were very eager to wave goodbye to their children. The campus was finally alive again, and the energy from the kids and our families was electric. As I walked to school that morning, screams coming from the gym as kids are playing, singing coming from the music room that they hadn't been able to use in 18 months. And I made my way out to the first recess, and the yells from the Gaga pit on our playground, it just filled my heart. Our days have gone pretty smoothly. We've learned some things, of course, with new plans and having to adjust things in real time. But one of the things that I'm most proud of is the plans that we had in place last spring and all the effort that we put into opening our school. We were able to carry a lot of those things over and proving that our school is a safe and efficient place for kids to learn and for our staff to work. Of course, it's always fun to bounce around the classrooms on those first days of school and see students as they settle in with all their new school supplies, which I know Dr. Cordy loves, backpacks, new shoes, all of those types of things. But I think the most remarkable thing is how quickly our teachers and staff formulate a sense of community with their classrooms from the very first day, and really setting the stage for what will be a community of learners, a community of friends going throughout the entire year. One of our highlights at the elementary school this year is the addition of our STEM program. Each of our students has an hour a week in the STEM room with their teacher, with their STEM teacher. And this began on the first day of school as students were in investigative and problem-solving activities that really set the stage for what this place will be for our kids throughout the school year. That is a hands-on place of exploration, experimentation, teamwork, trial and error, and success. And I'm excited that we've been able to enrich our students' learning opportunities with this fun and engaging new program. And the thing that's crazy is today would have been the first day that a class would have been in there twice. But I had everyone from first graders to fifth graders come up and tell me that STEM is the favorite part of their day, and they've only been once. It says a lot about the team that we hired, and that this has already been a huge success for our students. Speaking of students, kids are funny, especially when they don't think they're being funny. We've been welcoming our kindergartners in and teaching them routines, and one of the routines is bathroom. How do we get to the bathroom? Where is the bathroom? Remember, I showed you twice yesterday where the bathroom was. So we had this little kindergarten girl who had been gone for a while, and so one of my instructional assistants kind of yelled into there, "Hey, you doing okay?" And she mumbles something. "Are you doing okay? Leave me alone. I can't rush this." Had a kindergarten boy, when it was a little warm outside, come running up to me. He says, "Man, I'm sweating like a jackrabbit." I don't even know what that means, but it was super funny. And one of my fifth grade students who was working with one of our learning specialists to get his binder all organized in fifth grade with the tabs and the dividers and all of the things that need to be put together. When he had finished it all, got it all put together, his teacher said, "Okay, now snap it." So he looks at her and goes, just like that. Just funny. Kids are funny. Our building's a hive of activity, community, care, love, learning, and laughter. And as always, I welcome you to spend some time with us at Middleton this year. Watch our incredible team in action, visit with our incredibly amazing kids, and witness the great learning and great teaching that is happening in our school. Thank you very much. And I'll introduce Patrick Struckrow, principal at Archer Glen.
Good evening, Superintendent Cordy, Board Chair Hecker, Board of Directors, student representative, and former student of Here and Boom. Hello, good evening. My name is Patrick Struckrow. I'm the new principal of Archer Glen Elementary School. Last time I shared a little bit about what it means for me to come into a new community and understand that community in such a way where it's empathetic and it feels authentic. And that has changed so much in this short period of time. It has changed in a number of ways. One such way is just that learning curve has really been condensed and it's been more dynamic than I think I would have anticipated. So opening this school year has been very exciting. It's exciting in many different ways, including in the needs for planning, adjusting, making things as safe as possible, making things as inclusive as possible, making things as joyful as possible. And it has also included just the joy of being able to learn a community through its children. So it is amazing how important it is to be in a place in the way that it's meant to be. So understanding a building, not just through the physical layout and not just through stories from staff, but to hear from students and see students, to see the joy of recess, to see the conversations that happen at lunch, the energy that happens when you arrive to school, that moment of discovery of read aloud books. Those are things that are so hard to capture without being in the place where those things are happening. And that has been just such the joy of opening up this school year. I'm reminded of something that we talked about as a staff of there's so many things that we can affirm each other of. There is affirmational aspects of all the work that we've accomplished over this last year and a half, 2 years, and through this summer and into the school year. And those are things that we should really celebrate. It's important for us to recognize our strengths and to grow from a position of strength, to understand our students through a perspective of strength and to grow from there. And it's also so important to take an aspirational lens to that as well, of what can we do next? Like, what's our future hold to us? And that is really special. It's something that really excites us. It excites our students. We've talked about some of the new things with STEM, very exciting over at Archer Glen as well. And I wanted to learn about our strengths and our aspirations through the data points that really matter. And that's through our students. So I spent a little bit of time talking with our students and I just asked them, what makes Archer Glen special? And I just wanted to share that. Here's what I heard. Archer Glen is a place where it's easy to make friends. It is the best school that I've ever been to. Well, it's the only school I've been to, but still, we'll take it. I was so excited to come to school that I woke up 3 times last night. This is on a Tuesday night, by the way. So it's lovely. Art is everywhere, and it's just awesome here. And then finally, it's like a second home. Thank you.
Oh my gosh, wonderful job. Thank you all so much for sharing the first week. I think it feels a little bit like we were there with your descriptions, and I always love such great stories, and yeah, certainly something to really cherish this year. With that, we will now move on to reports, and I will turn the mic over to Dr. Cordy.
Okay, good evening. Thank you. The big things that have happened since we met last are In-Service Week and New Staff Academy, and of course, the start of the school year. And there is very little that I could say about the start of the school year that could even compare with the amazing stories and anecdotes that our principals just shared. I am going to share a thought that I had after the first day of school when I was just reflecting that evening and just thinking about all of the feelings that I was having about that day as I was looking back on it. And I started thinking about how in late 2019, we did a boundary adjustment process. And that boundary adjustment process had to happen because of the changes at our elementary schools linked to the transformations and the projects with the bond. And boundary adjustments are hard. They impact a community and certainly families. We got to the end of that, and then just immediately after, March 2020 happened. And then it was a year later that we started welcoming students in sort of part-time hybrid ways into those schools. So spring of 2021. And I was thinking at the end of that first day of school this week, that was truly the first day in Sherwood's recent history with the new formation of our school district. The first day that we had all students in all schools every day. And that is a really big deal. And thinking about all of the things that meant, all of the things. And so, you know, the heartwarming stories about the first days of school and being able to be there to help sixth graders with their locker combinations, which has traditionally been what I've loved to do. And, you know, just all of those things were back and real and present in our lives. And I too will never again take for granted any of those moments. I was thinking about the challenges that we encountered the first few days and are still trying to straighten out around traffic patterns and transportation. And, you know, before a pandemic in the first week of school, we have to figure those things out. And so here we are, you know, it was the first week of school and the first time that we had students in all of these schools with the new design of how our district looks. And so surely there would be things that we need to make adjustments to, but I'll take it and we'll take it all the time if that means that we can have students there every day. And so our team is working on those challenges, working diligently to figure out how to help create solutions around some of those traffic pattern and transportation issues. But at the end of the day, we've got all kids there every day, and it sure makes our hearts happy. Thank you.
Okay, and we'll switch now to our ASB student representative, and Ella, the mic is yours.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. I'm Ella Perenboom. I'm the ASB president, and I'm a senior at Sherwood High School. I'm super honored to be representing our student body tonight. We've had a great first week back in the high school, and we are all looking forward to a great year. We already had our first assembly for the senior class, and we will be having an assembly for each following class the rest of the weeks in September. And it was held in the main gym, and it was amazing. We had responses from both the students and the teachers just saying how great it felt to be back in the crowd with the Bowman spirit. We are working on many projects in the upcoming weeks, including the club fair, super fans, the Bowman News Network, and lots of fundraising. We've also started work on our homecoming. We voted for the theme Dance Across the Decades, and we announced it this past Friday at the assembly. We've begun planning the parade, court, game, and dance, and we are all very excited. We know there's potential for change due to COVID, so we do have contingency plans in place. We all really appreciate the school board and teacher support in our safety precautions so that we can all remain in school, because it is so great to be back. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Ella. Okay, and with that, SEA, Mr. Pace, you're welcome to take the podium, please.
Good evening, Superintendent Cordy, Chair Hecker, and directors. My name is Kyler Pace. I'm a fifth grade teacher at Archer Glen, and I'm here tonight on behalf of the Sherwood Education Association as this year's president. During the New Teacher Academy, I had the opportunity to present during a short portion to our new teachers. I worked alongside Mr. Emmert to not only introduce myself, but talk through some of the important pieces of our contract that our teachers need to know about. And the thing that I appreciate most about that is how we worked alongside a district administrator when we do that, just to show our new teachers that this is how we operate and how we try to keep that relationship with our administrators, and just to show them that we have that partnership. On September 7th, our teachers had an opportunity to do a family outreach day where it was the first opportunity to meet some of our students. It looked a little different at each level, but a lot of our teachers did a virtual meet and greet on Zoom. And when I did that with my students, there were a few things that I learned. First of all, I'm really glad that I'm not actually teaching on Zoom and have my kids in class. Although Mrs. Johnson, the mute button was kind of nice now that you said that. The second thing was just how excited the kids were to be back in school. One of the questions I asked was, what are you excited for about coming back to school? And by far the number one response kids said was, I just want to be back and see my friends. So you've already heard a lot of stories about the first days of school, but I just want to reiterate how happy our kids are to being back in class. My own students, when we returned in the springtime for the first time in person, I saw a lot more nervousness just in, they weren't sure, can I get out of my chair? Can I talk to my friends? How close can we get? I didn't see that. And I was very surprised and happily surprised that when kids came in the door, they were just happy to see their friends, much more active than I was expecting them to be on the first day of school. After the second day of school, I got an email from a parent and she told me that her daughter was less anxious, more excited and happier now that she's been back in school. At the end of the week, during our community circle on Friday, I asked the question, what's been the highlight of your week? And I had a student who said, it was really fun to be in school and see my classmates because I've never seen them in real life before. I've only seen them on Zoom. And I can actually tell how tall they are. So moving forward, SEA is going to continue to have regular discussions with the district administrators, and it's my goal to continue that collaborative approach to problem solving that we have taken in the past. Thank you, and that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Pace. Is there anyone from OSEA? Anyone? Okay. And City Council won't be here this evening, so we will move on to public comment. And public comment is up to 3 minutes. It's been submitted electronically. Mr. Rose and Ms. Andrig will read those comments up to that 3-minute limit. And just as an FYI, the purpose of the public comment is for the board to hear from the public and listen. It is not something that we respond to or have a dialogue regarding. It's just our opportunity to hear from those that have submitted comment. So with that, I will turn the mic over to Mr. Rose and Ms. Andrig for public comment. Thank you.
Lisa Brulette Hawkins, Hanley Street. We are grateful Orbit was given as an alternative option for the school year. It does seem like a viable option for older children and not for our younger. My 4th grader can do it independently, not well, and will have to redo his work in 3 classes already from failing grades because I have not been able to assist him at all. I have a 1st grader as well. Children who cannot read must have everything read to them or listen to a read-along robot. There is no pre-recorded teachers or videos. It is mom reading a screen, a very boring screen. I also have a toddler which I cannot give the proper attention to because I'm reading to my 1st grader. It would be an amazing alternative if the district could invest in a teacher to teach 1st and 2nd kids reading an hour of Zoom per class a day, or at the very least record a teacher in the classroom, which parents and students could follow along and parents could do the necessary hands-on with the students. Thank you. Eugenia, Sherwood Street. My kids use the school bus. Every day he's late for school. It's a big stress for kids after a year of distance learning and jumping from elementary to middle school. I hope the bus routes and time will be improved, or every parent will start to use their cars and it will be worse traffic. Dr. Stephen Remsen, Hanley Street. I'm requesting the school board and district take action to quickly adopt and clearly communicate a COVID-19 testing and screening safety strategy. As part of the Ready School Safe Learners Resiliency Framework, OHA and ODE strongly advise that schools implement COVID-19 testing and screening to identify infected individuals and prevent spread to others in school and in the community. However, neither COVID-19 safety strategy, communication sent by the district or my child's elementary school have yet to address if we are participating in any of the 2 and 1 staff opt-in COVID-19 programs offered by OHA ODE. I spoke to my child's elementary school principal and they said they are waiting for direction from the district and the board if my child is going to participate in any of these programs. I've also spoken to many district parents, particularly at the elementary school level, who strongly desire to opt in to OHA ODE student screening program for unvaccinated students without symptoms of COVID-19. As per the ODE website, this weekly testing program is offered at no cost to the district or school and may be done at home by families. Please give our parents the freedom of choice to opt in to this no-cost program to help keep all of our kids healthy and in school. Thank you. Janae Douglas, McLaughlin Court. Could we consider assigned seating on the school bus? That way we wouldn't have to quarantine an entire bus in the case of a COVID report. Roberta Carter, Pine Ridge Drive, mask mandate. Jennifer Lakis, Rolich Avenue. Greetings. Just a note of thanks and encouragement for the school year ahead. These intense times of challenge have unfortunately brought out so much divisiveness. I firmly believe you all have the interest of the students and community foremost and make your decisions with the best information possible. Please know that you have support and appreciation for all your navigating and a great many thanks for what you continue to do. Best of luck. Kind regards. James Smith, Southwest Houston. We understand about privacy, but would it be possible to include the vaccination status of the people who have tested positive in the emails that are sent to parents? The emails already omit the identity of those involved, but as a parent, I would like to get a better understanding if vaccinated breakthrough cases are going up within our community or the spread within unvaccinated individuals is going up, so that we can make a more informed decision when it comes to allowing our kids to ride the bus or attending in-person school altogether.
Linda Friedman, Little John Court. I was very grateful to watch the video that was recently sent out by the district for the opening of this year. I thought it was very nice to highlight the extra efforts that have been put forth by all the Sherwood staff these last 2 years. I understand it has been hard, but it was good to empathize with some of their emotional stress and to be even that much more grateful for the efforts of everyone. Thank you to all. While there was immense gratitude for our amazing staff, it was interrupted by the clip on social justice matters. Frankly, I don't see teachers or staff treating anyone poorly or with less respect. Bravo to all staff, right down to the bus drivers that N95'd up to deliver supplies during suffocating smoke to kids that couldn't make it in. We don't need divisive politics in this town with that kind of dedication. Thank you to all our amazing staff who show love and respect rather than preach division. Bravo. My main concern today is regarding a certain symbol that I have been seeing pictures of in our schools. My child and neighborhood children have been talking to me about the Communist Revolution symbol of the fist. They have seen this symbol in movies and now in local news reports, but not in a good way. And now they see it at school. This sign, the fist, has been around for centuries. It is used as a symbol of revolution and revolt against the government establishment. This last century, the Communist Party has adopted the fist. And here in America, even 30 minutes away in Portland, this symbol has been used in violent acts of burning, looting, destruction of businesses, beatings, and even shootings, all under the communist symbol of the fist. Many of our students, including 3 of our neighborhood families, have parents that work and serve as law enforcement. This communist symbol of the fist is also associated with efforts to kill these students' parents. Board members and Superintendent Cordy, please, I urge to motion to remove this hateful symbol from our schools. I understand that parents and teachers may, even ignorantly, not understand the full implication of this symbol. I am not hating on anyone. I am grateful for their good intentions, but there is nothing good in this symbol. Please motion this day to remove hatred and violence from our schools. Thank you. Shannon Miller, Martin Court. Good evening. I would like to ask that the Sherwood School District please opt into OHA's school testing resource programs. Our classrooms are now full all day, every day. Delta has dramatically increased community spread and the chance that our students will become infected with COVID-19 and transmit it in their full classrooms. Spacing has been reduced in order to increase capacity, and with fall and winter coming, they will soon be indoors all day, every day. Because our youngest students cannot yet be vaccinated and many older students who are eligible have not been vaccinated, the risk of school outbreaks has increased considerably since spring. This will inevitably and quickly result in increased infections among staff and students, which will in turn result in large number of quarantined individuals, which will then result in a constantly disrupted education for kids and a probable staffing shortage. OHA's testing programs, which include on-site diagnostic testing and weekly screening, could be an incredible way to identify positive cases quickly and reduce the exposures, quarantines, and outbreaks. And the program is free. If the district does not opt in, families and staff members will be denied access to testing that could help us keep our kids in schools and save lives. Please opt in so that we can opt in. Dan McCusker, Rolick Avenue. I wonder if the board would consider opting Sherwood into the free COVID testing program offered through ODE. This seems like a great way to minimize the spread of COVID in our schools with minimal cost to the district. The ability to quickly test individuals on site who have had an exposure or are symptomatic would be a key factor in quickly identifying the extent of the spread. And families having the ability to test their unvaccinated students at home each week would allow them to send their students to school with peace of mind. Both of these also minimize the likelihood of students and staff having to quarantine. I hope the district will join this program if they haven't already. Thank you for keeping our students, staff, and community safe.
Crystal Ventura, Baylor Way. On behalf of the foreign DLI second language teachers and students in our district, I want to advocate and plead with you for a reasonable accommodation to be considered. I want you to hear that students are very frustrated as teachers wearing face masks at all times is preventing them from having fair, equitable, and meaningful education. They are not experiencing access to fully participate in school during the pandemic, and they are not enabled the provision of FAPE if they cannot understand the teacher or learn the language of the classroom. To have our youngest learners at age 5, 6, and 7 subjected to 6 hours a day of frustration is not okay. These are smart kids and they want to understand and learn. We need to consider the unique circumstances involved in language learning. I am calling for a small but necessary modification to the mask mandate as it is applied in our district. In these specific situations, we need a reasonable and legal accommodation to allow our teachers to wear a face shield without a mask while instructing the class at a distance of 6 feet or greater for short periods of the educational day. This would allow for students to see not just facial expression, but how the mouth moves and actually forms sounds and words necessary for inquiring language. Reasonable modifications to practices, policies, and protocols are called for so that we can meet the educational needs of all students without discrimination, while minimizing risk of spreading COVID-19. Safeguarding student opportunity and prioritizing student inclusion in our schools. Crystal Ventura. Pam Growth, Chapman Road. Is there not a way to open the Kruger Road entrance to the student parking lot at the high school? Why is it always shut and locked? If it's because it's for the buses to use the bus lane, why can't students and parents use that entrance to park and or drop off? Maybe add a gate for the buses when they turn right to go down the bus lane. This way, students and parents could go straight and park in that upper lot or go the back way down to Haiti to access the student drop-off. This would really help alleviate the congestion off Elwert by the roundabout. It would also be very advantageous for your student population that lives up the hill off Kruger, Ayrshire, Chapman, Mountain Home, etc., to have that entrance open. Thank you for your consideration. Courtney Constantin, Wildlife Haven Court. In just the first few days of school, we have seen what feels like an increased number of bullying incidents being reported by families in our community. As a parent, this is distressing, knowing I am sending my own children into these environments daily. I believe our teachers have the best intentions for our children. However, more needs to be done. As a board, please research and ask the district to implement a more involved and rigorous anti-bullying campaign and teachings. All children are at risk of being bullied while in school, no matter their age, race, gender, etc. As many studies have shown, bullying in a social environment can be catastrophic and have very real-world consequences for those that are targets. As a community, I believe we wish to support our children in a better way to teach them their value and understand consequences to actions. Thank you.
Derek Gregory, Green Gate Place. If our district hasn't opted into the free COVID testing program through ODE, I believe we should. The Abbott Buy Next Now rapid tests are 96% accurate among symptomatic patients and 91% accurate among asymptomatic patients. The use of this weekly testing system would give clarity to us students, especially those of us with underlying health issues or family who could suffer more heavily than us with a positive case. This system would allow us to be in school for more time, as we won't have to quarantine on the slight chance that we are COVID positive, further helping students' mental health, grades, and passion towards school. As just one of the millions of students whose life has been completely broken down due to the COVID pandemic, I firmly believe that this COVID testing program would be a crucial additional layer of protection in our schools. Our elementary schools could benefit most from this, as the vast majority of the student population remains unvaccinated, and this program will make sure more kids can stay in school and not have to quarantine. Grace Lee, Red Top Terrace. I have an interesting family history, mostly because my father ran across the 28th parallel in 1952 to escape an oppressive regime forming to the north of the 28th parallel. For those who are unfamiliar with this, he escaped a socialist state under a totalitarian dictatorship. He and those family members that were able to fled across the 28th parallel from North Korea to South Korea, where he was raised and eventually immigrated to the United States. My childhood was filled with tales of lost family members, connections permanently cut, and even the loss of all of their personal possessions. My grandmother believed that the US would help South Korea push back on this horrible regime and buried their possessions, thinking they would one day return. That day never came, and she passed away 12 years ago, never being able to return to her home. This is the legacy that my father's side of the family leaves to my children. So imagine my shock when I see raised fists throughout Sherwood schools. The raised fist, the communist fist, as it is more aptly known, is used by socialist, anti-fascist, and communist parties. Why on earth are we not only supporting, but advertising and proudly displaying such a divisive symbol? When I think of community, I think of people coming together, trying to be united, working together towards a common goal. Instead, I see symbols of division and separation. I don't think I need to go into the history of the various movements of this raised fist symbol that has been used throughout the world to separate and divide people. Since you've proudly displayed these bigoted symbols throughout your schools, I believe you know what these symbols stand for and feel that you did this deliberately to be biased and prejudiced against a portion of your school population. I find that to be shameful on the part of school administration, encouraging this discriminatory behavior. I am beyond offended and insulted by this symbol that is being shoved down children's throats. You keep talking about inclusion, but you're doing quite the opposite with further division and discrimination. I feel saddened that you don't seem to understand how a raised communist fist can trigger PTSD in a grandparent who lost practically everything to a communist regime. Why is this okay? Why is it okay to celebrate a totalitarian dictatorship under a communist regime? These types of ideology and political viewpoints should not be part of educating our children. There is nothing wrong with wanting to be stronger together, but including a raised fist within that statement is nothing but contradictions within itself. Education should be about focusing on math, science, history, and language arts, not about installing political ideology into our children's minds. Your promotion of the communist fist and celebration of a totalitarian dictatorship is disgusting, offensive, and prejudiced.
Marie Starling, Hostler Way. I've been looking through the textbook assigned for AP US History, and I'm very concerned that this is not an appropriate textbook to be using to teach this subject. The author is very clear in his preference that he has written this, or in his preface, that he has written this book to present a narrative rather than to present facts. He even went so far as to admit his facts are not necessarily accurate. I'm only 50 pages in, as this is a 1,100-page book, and I've already found factual errors as well as a definite desire to indoctrinate our students into critical race theory and pro-socialist views. I would invite the other parents of US history students, as well as the members of this school board, to read through this book and decide if this is what we want our kids being told instead of factual US history. Examples of the narrative. 2 paragraphs totaling under 18 lines on the contents of the Bill of Rights, 2 full pages on the creation of Black Lives Matter, page 261, and pages 1138 through 1140. The reduction of the Cold War to a cynical ploy by American presidents to keep unity after World War II. Stalin is mentioned in one line as committing atrocities. Mao is completely excused. Indeed, America is scolded for failing to immediately acknowledge Mao as the new ruler and seating Communist China on the UN Security Council, page 915. Glowing words like exceptional, accomplishment, promise, historic to describe Obama's presidency, while using loaded terms like plummeting, alienated to describe Bush. His words to describe Trump come directly from CNN headlines and show no attempt to do any independent research. Bernie Sanders' proud socialism is called a remarkable accomplishment, page 1146. No matter what your political preference, you should be deeply suspicious of a purported textbook being so nakedly partisan. No good can come from telling youth that the most important way to view our country is through the lens of a racial strife. Roger and Kedia Frasia, Whitney Lane. We are parents of 3 students, one in middle school, another in high school, and the last one in college. All of my family members are fully vaccinated. The university my older daughter will attend has a vaccine mandate for everyone, staff, teachers, and students. But not our middle school, SMS, and high school, SHS, have a vaccine mandate only for teachers and staff, not students. My question is the following. Now that the COVID-19 vaccine has already an FDA approval for 16 and older, why isn't this vaccine also required for students 16 and older, the same as other vaccines are required in order to attend school? Like, for example, DTaP, polio, MMR, etc. At least our high school would be so much safer for everyone, especially for the unfortunate who cannot medically get vaccinated. These would be protected while having the right to attend school in person. Right now, with unvaccinated students allowed to attend SHS in person, the students who medically cannot get vaccinated are the ones staying home doing online school. Thank you.
Angela Christ, Southwest Orchard Heights Place. My husband and I grew up in the beautiful state of Oregon, and we were excited to raise our family here as well. We planted our roots here in Sherwood 15 years ago. Grateful to be part of this amazing community and grateful for the amazing schools. Never in my wildest dreams did I think that we would have to worry about the content of what may or may not be included in the classroom. The stories I'm hearing from across the state and possibly within our own schools here is completely unacceptable. Today, I am asking that the school board implement a policy that makes the curriculum that is being taught to our kids 100% transparent. Parents should be aware of all reading material and curriculum content on a weekly basis. Thank you. Jeffrey William Peterson, Southwest Handley Street. Dr. Cordy and school board members, we would like to congratulate you all on a smooth return to in-person instruction in the Sherwood School District. Despite a very politically charged environment, especially surrounding vaccinations and masking protocols, it is a relief to see that our children are once again receiving in-person instruction in a safe environment. We recognize that this is in large part due to gubernatorial mandates, but we are very appreciative of the results. As nationwide vaccine mandates become applicable to school districts and large employers, we expect that Sherwood children and other vulnerable members of our community will be much better protected from current or future COVID variants. When that time comes, we will also be very appreciative. We believe that recent events in the nearby community of Newburgh provide additional impetus to embrace state and national recommendations regarding DEI curriculum. Only 8 miles away, at least one student was found participating in a slave trade Instagram group, posting photos of Newburgh students alongside derogatory comments and racial and homophobic slurs. Newburgh continues to attract statewide attention regarding their potentially illegal ban of BLM and pride flags, which may have contributed to these students' apparent comfort with their slave trade participation. Thank you for emphasizing within our local curriculum that racism and homophobia have no place in our community of Sherwood. Thank you again for a safe and harmonious return to in-person instruction for our children. Sincerely, Jennifer and Jeffrey Peterson, parents of 6th, 9th, 9th, and 11th grade students in the Sherwood School District. Stephanie Sinalia, Southwest Lower Roy Street. First off, I would like to say that my kids have both started their sophomore year of high school very strong and have been enjoying their classes and teachers thus far. Thank you. You are appreciated. I have a real concern for the harassment and discrimination that is happening to my son and others by the vice principal and interim principal at Sherwood High School regarding the wearing of the masks. I am not okay with it. My son has been singled out and discriminated against because he has not been wearing the mask in the proper way. He has been followed repeatedly and made an example of, embarrassed and humiliated. Not okay. These are children that you are dealing with and that we are entrusting you with daily. I do not trust you, and I am very aware of what has been going on. My son is a student athlete and he works very hard to accomplish what he has to this point in his life. He is responsible and respectful and is a great kid. He should not ever be punished in standing up for himself and his beliefs. We are trying to raise these young humans into our future leaders. Don't you dare break that. Let's focus on what is important, like their academics and positive mental health while doing so. That is why they are required to go to school. I will not allow the abuse and mistreating that has gone on to this point. Bullying is not okay. Let's make a change now and continue to have a strong school year. Lord knows every one of these kids deserves it. Thank you for your time. Willie Baldwin, Southwest Smock Street. Has there been any disciplinary actions due to the vulgar dance team music during the school assembly or varsity football halftime show? If not, is this type of language accepted in school? Kevin Owens, Southwest Robson Terrace. Please have the high school open up the gate on the west side of the school. This will allow another access point and improve the traffic congestion that we are seeing. Thank you. And that concludes public comment.
Thank you. Okay, we will move on to our information and discussion part of the agenda, and we'll be talking about the in-service week, and I will turn the mic over to Dr. Cordy.
All right, thank you. The next portion of our agenda is going to be, is designed to share with the board what took place over in-service week and the really great opportunities all across the district with staff. So we will have multiple presenters for this portion. We'll have various department leaders sharing with you in addition to an administrator from each level. So with that, I will turn things over to Marlene Carroll.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Cordy, Board Chair Hecker, and board members. Okay, so here is the overview of tonight. We're going to kind of run through some of the departments and then through the schools and transportation and nutrition services. All right. So teaching and learning's work for in-service week really begins at the beginning of August. Our instructional focus this year is MTSS, which is multi-tiered systems of support. And during our Administrative Leadership Institute, that is held at the beginning of August, we focused on student data. And we looked at achievement data, behavior data, attendance data, and we really tried to understand our students' story through the data that we saw, especially because we knew that a lot of students were coming back with a need to accelerate instruction. As we went through the Institute, we really modeled what a CLT or a collaborative learning team looked like in our schools. And we did that because we wanted to give the opportunity for our building leadership to take those tools back to their schools and model for their staff during in-service week. And At the same time that we were doing that, our building leadership, they were creating master schedules that support intervention, creating time for homeroom, creating time for flight time, all so that they could prepare for in-service week and really implement the MTSS system. We also, right before in-service week, all of our instructional coaches, our TOSAs, our instructional administrators went to the Gym Night Coaching Institute. That is a series of workshops that run the entire year, and they provide professional development on how to support teams and teachers through really thoughtful, meaningful conversations. So that work will continue throughout the year, but it really started right before in-service week. And so that was incredibly thoughtful in the approach of how our teams started their building work. I wanted to kind of share a little bit about the pictures that are up here, because you probably don't know what they represent. But our high school, during their in-service week, they met with their leadership team, and they all kind of drew what they wanted MTSS to look like in their schools. And I felt like these two images really captured what we're trying to do as a district. Instructionally, and it's really putting that student in the center. And we have this whole system that's MTSS, and you can't really see, but the little rings around the heart, the first one says, teachers and staff, because they connect directly with students. But we also have professional goals as teachers and as our CLTs. And the next ring says CLTs and our CLT goals, because each collaborative learning team is going to create goals that support student learning in a variety of ways. And they're going to work together to move that work forward. And then we have the school, and the school has goals. It has a multitude of goals that really ultimately support the student as well. And then we have the district, and we kind of all wrapping our arms around each other to create this multi-tiered system of support that supports students' academics, their behavior, and their mental health. And so the work that was done by Teaching and Learning kind of kicked off that work for our buildings as they move forward through their in-service week. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to another department, our Student Services Department. And Erin Gonzalez-Randles is going to speak to the work that they did.
Good evening, Superintendent Cordy, Chair Hecker, and members of the board. I'm Erin Gonzalez-Randles, and I'm the Associate Director of Student Services for Sherwood School District. Thank you for having me here tonight. I'm going to talk a little bit about what Student Services did during in-service week as well. During in-service week, there we go. Now we're ready. During in-service week, the Student Services Department had the opportunity to join buildings to do some relationship and building and culture building with the staff and teams in schools. It was a really great way to introduce new staff to our district and to just build a really positive team culture with our existing groups of staff. In addition, all staff participated in suicide prevention training, which is a requirement of Senate Bill 52. The visual you see there of the smiling faces is a group of Ridges Elementary staff members participating in what we call Red Binder training. So Red Binder training is dedicated time before the school year begins, where staff can collaborate to review accommodations, modifications, and health medical protocols for individual students. They look like they're having a lot of fun doing it too. In addition, this year, special education staff have really been busy with a much higher than usual number of move-in students with disabilities. So just to give you a little reference, we currently have the same number of students with disabilities who've moved into our district that we usually have during an entire school year. So it's been a very busy time where we're preparing and planning to support these students as they join our schools. And finally, Dr. Fritz and I have had the opportunity to engage with a number of staff teams in department meetings throughout the buildings. Thank you so much. And I'm going to hand it over to our Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, Tamara Glavin.
Good evening, Chair Hecker, board members, and Superintendent Cordy. During in-service week, I had the pleasure of working with all of our building administrators and our staff in a variety of ways. And I would like to know that it was a joy to see people back in the building and to really begin cultivating relationships with our district staff. The overall purpose of the information and the activities that we engaged with and in was to lay the foundation for future conversations and work that we'll be doing together. The first thing that was on the list of to do was introductions. I felt it was important to introduce myself, as well as have the staff introduce themselves to each other, because we had a lot of new staff and returning staff, and some buildings were merging for the first time. So it was important to kind of build those relationships and introduce everybody. Next was creating group agreements, and this looked very different at different schools. The purpose of this was to lay the foundation for how we're going to communicate, not just on topics that I might engage with, but also in different areas for different topics, and create a kind of shared standard for how to communicate with one another throughout the year. At the elementary level, I provided some examples where groups could either adopt the examples, adjust the examples, or completely change them and include their own examples if they'd like, or include their own agreements if they'd like. From that, staff members worked in groups to talk about the examples and to create their own agreements. They took notes, and I took those notes and created a list of all of the notes that they gave me, and then summarize them into categories that best fit the feedback that they gave. And then I passed that on to building administrators, where they could do what they would like with those group agreements. At the high school, we reviewed some predetermined expectations and what those barriers might look like to those expectations, strategies to overcome them, and groups discussed how they might work together to keep each other accountable. We also discussed comfort levels, looked at zones of safety, and watched a video called Get Comfortable with Being Uncomfortable, where the purpose of all of that was to help staff become reflective and think about their own mindsets, especially regarding where they might be as we continue our work together, and just determine their own level and be reflective, taking themselves into consideration as well. And finally, we reviewed the equity audit and the empathy interviews from last spring. This was a very quick introduction, so I showed them the different components of the audit and the interviews, and asked them to go back and read it individually on their own so they could dive farther into it, jot down questions, make notes, things like that. Really, reviewing this audit is for us to ground ourselves in this work and to listen to the testimonies of our community members, of our staff members, and of our students. We will be revisiting the audit and the group agreements and the video frequently throughout the year, so it was something that we'll come back to and connect with. At the middle school, I did something different. The middle school handled their own equity professional development. They facilitated it within the building, even though we collaborated together on some pieces, but there I introduced myself, shared some values and some goals. And with that, I thank you for your time and pass it off to Amy Mitchell.
Good evening again, Dr. Cordy, Board Chair Hecker, board members, and our student representative. I am Amy Mitchell, and I'm the Associate Principal at Ridges Elementary. Relationship and culture building was a highlight among all 4 of our schools during in-service week. Considering it's been almost a year and a half since we've been together as a staff, it was pretty incredible to all be in one space for a week. We've been through a pandemic, a boundary change, transformations, and several changes amongst our staff. So spending time on our building culture allowed us to get to know one another and create a common vision for our schools. We also spent, as Marlene touched on, we also spent some time reconsidering how we identify our students for interventions and extensions, along with looking at our identification systems and processes. Our revamp this year was well received. Teachers commented how much they appreciated the time to go slow, to focus on some best practices, and have opportunities to collaborate around student learning. We look forward to our weekly early release time to continue this work together. Additionally, we did a review of routines and procedures of how to best keep our kids safe in an emergency. Now that we're back in person, fire drills look different in our new buildings at some of our sites, giving us new exit routes to practice and refine. We also went over our most recent RSSL guidance to ensure that our staff feels prepared to carry out the guidelines. Finally, as Kyler mentioned earlier, teachers and staff spent time connecting one-on-one with students through Zoom, through phone calls, or through tours in our buildings. We heard from many parents how much they appreciated that additional time and the time to acclimate their children, a lot of them to new schools where there was a lot of anxious feelings about return. Overall, there was a cheerful energy this week, unlike any other. Even though we were all masked, you could tell that there were a lot of smiles during our time together. Most importantly, there was a lot of excitement to be able to finally fill our hallways with kids again.
Good evening, Dr. Cordy, Board Chair Hecker, members of the board. It's good to be here with you this evening. So I'm Jake Heelan from the middle school, and we did quite a bit. I think I need to hit this little button here too fast. There we go. All right. So you've heard a little bit. We did some similar things. I think Tamara mentioned the equity audit. One of the things that we wanted to put on here first is relationships and culture building. We've been very intentional for the past few years about bringing two buildings together, and that work continued this year. In some ways, it was almost like a first time, right? Because last year it wasn't quite a real year to us. It was, students were in the building, we were in the building. But this was a first time in many ways. We knew kids, 1,200 of them coming at us at once. It was going to be amazing. And we had some new staff members, and it's a big building. And so we took some time, and really first day on Monday morning, we did a walkthrough where we broke our teachers into teams, our staff members into teams. They walked through the building, they talked, they got to know each other, they got to see it. And we just worked with them on connecting. And then throughout the week, we did that as well. We did like a this or that, where they just got to ask with sort of silly questions and it's, what do you think this or that? And so we really spent a lot of time in that week trying to be intentional and thinking about bringing those two buildings together so that we are one building and cohesive. And there was a lot of very positive feedback on that. Some other things you've kind of heard a little bit about already are the MTSS. So we did an overview with our teacher teams and our staff about MTSS. We have the benefit of really building on some of the, what we call kid talks, but really our grade level teams and houses. So we divide up our kids kind of travel in groups and they have the same teachers. Last year, that was a little tighter because of COVID protocols, but even this year, that's something we do. It's something that's always been part of our process. It was something that goes back to the TVAC process that is intentionally designed within our school. And so we wanted to talk about, we do a lot of these things that MTSS advocates, and we're building on that, improving it and making it better as we dig into what MTSS is. So we talked with our grade level teams about that and our CLTs about what does it mean to look at student data and just what is MTSS as we kind of throw another acronym in education at them. Because as you're aware, there are quite a few of those, a lot of abbreviations. Tamara mentioned the equity audit. We did choose to kind of partner with her, but also do some of our own work with that. So we also did that equity audit. I think it looked very similar to the other levels. The staff was, again, very appreciative of the chance to really just digest that information, to hear the feedback from the community. That's going to be a little better. So I feel like I'm crouching over there. And so we worked through that equity audit. We took some time really digging into it and sharing what they just thought about it, what they heard from the voices in the community. And then we also did an inclusivity walkthrough. So in our first walkthrough, we had people sharing their voices and they were walking through as staff members. In an inclusivity walkthrough, we asked them to take on personas of students, just a lot of different students, not actual students that we have, but just trying to understand what does it look like to come into the building from a different perspective. And so again, that was something where we wanted to identify, are there ways we can be more inclusive for all of our students? And again, that was feedback that we got that was really good, and our staff really appreciated that. Another one that we introduced was community circles. So if you're familiar with the culture of care that happens at elementary, we've been wanting to build on that because now we have students coming to us who are very familiar with community circles, who've been doing a lot of work around the culture of care. And so we wanted to start to implement that. We invited Chelsea Vukovic and Brad Gregorian to teach how to do community circles. And we're implementing that in our flight time program, which is our daily advisory. We're also implementing Character Strong.
Thank you. Is the community circle program really designed to help with some of the bullying kind of behaviors and try and do some reduction and prevention strategies, as well as kind of relationship building among students to try and avoid those kind of behaviors taking root in our schools?
Yes, yeah, exactly. So flight time is our dedicated time at the start of the day. Last year, we piloted Character Strong curriculum, which targets bullying as well. It's an anti-bullying curriculum as well as a community building curriculum. And then the community circles is another component of that. And there's been a lot of success at that elementary level with that program. And we know we have kids coming in who are familiar with it, who do that. And so we wanted to just say, hey, we want to have that here too. You guys are knowing how to use your voice and how to share if something is going on. So let's continue that good work here at the middle level. And so that was something that the staff was really excited about. As in the elementary level, we reviewed the safety protocols. We talked about what's new, because there's some differences from RSSL that was last year. And so we just highlighted what did we learn last year, and then what's new. And then I kind of mentioned some of the feedback. Overall, it was really positive. Another thing that they really appreciated was there was a lot of intentional time where we would do some PD, and then there was time to implement that PD or talk with their grade level teams or CLTs, as well as just balancing out the work time versus the PD time. And then we do have some ongoing work that I think is important to call out. One of the feedback pieces we got on the equity audit was, will there be more equity work in the building in terms of like an equity audit at the building level? And so there were some people who were really asking about what that could look like. We know that there needs to be a building level equity team, as well as MTSS implementation and an MTSS leadership team. We talked a little bit about grading and assessment, and we're putting together a team to look at how we assess. And then we have a culture committee who will continue the work on how do we build our teams coming together. And then that includes both students and staff. How do we just continue to enrich the experience and make it feel like we're one cohesive, happy family there at the middle school? Thank you. And I believe next up is Katie Voss from the high school.
Thank you. Good evening, and Dr. Superintendent Heather Cordy, Chair Hecker, and board members. At the high school, we engaged in a lot of the same types of professional development that you've heard about from the middle school and the high school. We looked at safety procedures with a standard response protocol and COVID and cybersecurity trainings. We engaged in some equity work that was really valuable for all of our staff, reviewed student and staff expectations. We also looked at the Character Strong curriculum and updated our agreements for Canvas. One of the highlights that was specific to our building was extending the work that we started with the instruction team the week before, looking at data for our school to identify goal areas for our building. And we use those to lead our CLT work this week, continuing to focus on areas that we saw needs for improvement in our data. And I'm going to pass off my portion to Teresa Swake to talk about additional high school support.
Good evening, Superintendent Cordy, Chair Hecker, board members, student representative. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. A cornerstone of our professional development week was relationship building. We spent time as a whole staff reconnecting, welcoming our new staff and connecting them to us. We shared our stories, our struggles, our joys. We talked about our hopes for this upcoming school year and some of our worries. A significant amount of time was used to develop activities and lessons to reconnect our students to us, for us to connect with our students, for students to reconnect with one another, to connect to our beautiful new building, and to reconnect to learning, and to truly be Bowman back together. Every single day, there was an opportunity for us to gather smiles, and it was very intentional. When staff entered the building at some portion during the day, there was a treat or there was an activity to gather those smiles and to see everyone smile and be back together again. My favorite one was on Tuesday when our fabulous PSO came in with hundreds of fresh cut flowers and cups for staff to go through and build their own bouquet. A constant reminder in the room during the week of how excited we are that they are back with us. On Thursday that week, one of our staff members designed a departmental challenge and competition, a team goose chase. Our departments had to race to locations throughout the building, find the activity, the person or the object that they needed to take a picture of or to record, to submit it as quickly as they could. And on Friday, we were able to celebrate those winners, watch some very exciting videos, and just really enjoy a fantastic week together. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. Up next is Sandy Miller from Transportation.
Good evening, Dr. Cordy, Chair Hecker, and Board of Directors. Thank you for the opportunity to share some of our activities during our in-service week at Transportation. So in-service at Transportation looks a little bit different, and this year it looked different than it ever had before because in October of last year, the SIPOL building became all of Transportation and we weren't sharing the space anymore, which was very exciting for us because we actually have room to train. Prior to this, we would send our drivers for their basic classes out to, it was called the summer workshop, where other instructors were teaching our drivers. And so now we're able to have the space to teach them ourselves. So we have control of what they're being taught and can make sure they're getting the best training we can give them. As part of there was 2 classes that we highlighted the in-service week with. The pedestrian safety class was based on an incident and where a bus was making a left turn and struck a pedestrian. And so we built that class off of that incident and highlighted all of the blind spots on buses and ways that they can decrease distractions and eliminate those blind spots to keep our pedestrians safe around our buses. And then the second day we had, I had been doing a series of classes based on NTSB reports from different school bus accidents across the nation. In 2012, there was a really bad bus fire that killed the driver and a student on the bus. And so we took a look at that class, and as part of that, the NTSB report concluded that the student couldn't get off of the bus for a number of reasons, one of which they felt like maybe she didn't have really good evacuation training, and the second of which had to do with driver physical fitness. And so we kind of focused on that and spent some time on hands-on evacuation training so that our drivers know what to teach our kids. So our kids will be prepared. Should there be a bus fire, we want to make sure our kids know how to get off the bus, even if the driver can't. As part of that, though, if you look at the pictures, we took a smoke machine and smoked a bus and had the drivers go on it and try to find the second picture you see there where she's carrying, it's a doll. It's not a child, but So we hit a doll on the bus and the drivers got to go on there and just see how dark and that you can't see them and really had to feel for to find the child on the bus. And those kinds of hands-on activities are really, really good training for our drivers. And then the last picture there you see with the little red tag in the middle of it is a picture of fog maker fire suppression systems. And we talked about that with our drivers. We started ordering all of our buses as of last year with fire suppression systems on the engine compartment and the battery compartment. We're actually the only district in the state to do that right now. And that was another addition based off of that sort of lessons learned from the Iowa fire. Thank you. And now I will turn it over to Lizanne Ward Mustang for an update on nutrition services.
Good evening, Board Chair Hecker, Board of Directors, Ella, and Superintendent Dr. Cordy. I'd like to speak this evening about what Nutrition Services does for their professional development during in-service week. And each year, Nutrition Services team usually attends an 8-hour in-person professional development based on food safety and Nutrition 101. This year, due to the situation, we needed to attend an interactive virtual food safety class, and the University of Mississippi and the Institute of Child Nutrition, they actually staffed virtually for us. And with the technology from our district, we were able, and the equipment in conference room G here in the district office, we were able to socially distance and still have a really awesome food safety class where we all got to interact. And they go ahead and send us all the materials ahead of time. And then all of us get credits for that following the training. What was really cool is then we got to take a lunch break and all have lunch together here outside. It was a beautiful day and we got to enjoy the courtyard. And that was a real pleasure to be with my team. And then we also follow up every year with the required from the Oregon Department of Education. We do a civil rights training. The Oregon Department of Education Child Nutrition Programs works closely with the USDA Office of Civil Rights and are committed to equal educational opportunity and respectful environments. Our yearly civil rights training is specific to the school nutrition program. The training includes the civil rights complaint procedure and the requirement for a complaint log to be available at each kitchen. Then we followed up with getting to introduce, we have 3 new team members that started the first week of school, and we're just very grateful that we were actually fully staffed. So that's it from Nutrition Services. Thank you.
Are there any questions we can answer for you?
I have a quick question about nutrition services and how it's going with students being able to get lunches. Are we seeing more participation in students actually eating lunch at school as a result of those lunches being accessible for every kid?
Yes. Yes, we have increased participation. It's at the high school, we have doubled what we typically would serve in a normal year. And the middle school is very busy as well. And all the elementaries are coming along really close to the numbers pre-pandemic.
That's great. Thank you.
Any other question? Dr. Nangar.
I believe it was the middle school. There was equity professional development. Can you kind of walk us through that and how that works?
Yeah. Can you clarify? Do you want me to run through what we did with the professional development?
What's
Was
the
that
goal? What's the message? What are we trying to accomplish with the?
Okay, so what we did was really similar to what you heard the other levels do, in that we introduced the equity audit, and so that was just something our staff members hadn't seen before, and so they went through those questions and the responses the community provided. We also showed the video that I think was up there from Ms. Glavin's presentation, and then we did something called an inclusivity walkthrough, and that was actually put together by Dr. Fritz. And that just had students' perspectives written out, and we broke into teams, and the teachers walked around the building and kind of looked at the building from the, sorry, trying to hold that back. So that's much better. They walked around the building and they just said, like, if I was a student, what do I see? What does it look like? How would I feel? And it just kind of gave a different perspective than maybe being a teacher who walks around. That was the extent of our equity PD.
I have a quick question. Sorry. So sorry. One quick question. Can you give me some examples of when you said that you put on like the shoes of a student? So give me some examples of different students and through different eyes that you guys did, if you could.
Yeah, I can try. I honestly, I didn't write them and I don't remember them off the top of my head. So I'm definitely not an expert. But I want to say, I know he said they were based on different examples of students, like his students he'd had in the past who actually generated them. So I know they're from real world examples of students. I want to say it was just all sorts of diversity and different perspectives. So again, I wish I could give you that. I'm not sure I have it. If somebody can speak to it.
Sure. Yeah, I can give you a couple of examples. Some examples were students with disabilities and what they might see. Do they see representation of other students with disabilities around them? Other examples were students who don't, whose first language is not English and may speak another language. Is their representation of their language, as well as students who are diverse in many other ways, including skin color or, orientation. So a lot of different viewpoints, as well as students who come from different socioeconomic status backgrounds. So a variety of viewpoints like that.
Thank you. Yeah.
Any other questions?
I'm sorry, you said viewpoints of skin, kids with different skin colors. Is that what you said?
Yes.
So I guess how would a child of color perceive things differently than, say, a white child?
So I think walking around the school, the activity is targeted to, do you see representation of others who look like you in the school? Do you see access for students with disabilities, for example? So there's a number of things to look through as you're looking at the school and the classrooms that you're visiting.
A little bit. That when it comes to ethnicity, it might look like classroom libraries having a wide range of authors and characters that are within books that are available, pictures in those books at the elementary level. It might also look like posters or art hanging on the wall. Do you see somebody that looks like you or somebody who has some kind of something in common with you? And it doesn't just pertain to skin color, it can also pertain to disabilities and socioeconomic status, language, country of origin even. So it's not just about race or ethnicity when it comes to the inclusivity walkthrough. Did that help? Yeah.
So just to kind of add in on that, one of the pieces of feedback we heard was that while we do an okay job of having both Spanish and English represented on our walls and on our doors, we don't always have a lot of other languages. Yet we know we have students who speak other languages in our school. And that wasn't specific to a scenario that was given, but it was one of those sort of aha or thoughts that came up as a product of that activity.
So languages, were these specific languages that you we're hearing about, or?
Do you mean in terms of the activity or in terms of sort of the
Sorry.
conversation that happened?
You said that there was an issue with, we've got our Spanish speaking students, English speaking students, but there weren't other languages represented. Were those?
Yeah,
do you know
so
what those were specifically, or?
So it wasn't specific. So the staff conversation wasn't necessarily like, we need more Korean on this bulletin board, so much as it was, we noticed there's a lot of Spanish and a lot of English, but maybe on these bulletin boards or on these walls, we need other languages when we're sending out messages, or it'd just be nice to see other languages represented because we know we have other students who also speak other languages.
Thank you. Anything else for the good of the order? Okay. I appreciate all of you taking so much time to discuss the professional development. And I'm so happy that you were able to have the time to do it and to be together, especially after all this time, and really appreciate your thoroughness and willingness to answer so many questions for us. So thank you. Okay, and we'll move on to Mr. Emmer talking about new staff academy.
Thank you. Good evening, Dr. Cordy, Board Chair Hecker, and Board of Directors. Wow, this has been a lot of information tonight, and I will try to be relatively brief, but share some of the cool things that happened at New Staff Academy. So New Staff Academy is something we started a number of years ago. It happens the week before in-service week, and we provide it for all of our new hires, our new staff members. This has been a year where we've hired more than ever in the past in the years I've been in Sherwood. We had, by the time we offered New Staff Academy, we had 41 new staff members, and we have continued to hire since that time. The New Staff Academy was 3 full days for our licensed staff, 1 full day for our classified staff. And I have to say, it's probably, well, not probably, it is one of my favorite times during the year. I think it reminds me of my first day with students when I was teaching high school. They're new, they're eager, they're often right out of school. It's oftentimes their very first opportunity to serve as educators. And it is a really fun and cool opportunity just to engage this way with our new hires. Once again, even during a year when hiring has been challenging, I am so impressed with just the caliber of people who have come to Sherwood. We just have some great new hires, both in the licensed and our classified ranks this year. And I have to credit our building principals for a lot of that, and our student services, because they do their own hiring within their buildings and have really, once again, knocked it out of the park. They found some really great people. So on Tuesday morning, we kicked it off with offering technology professional development for our licensed staff. Brady Strutz, Rachel Hay, who you met earlier tonight, and our technology team provided training in Synergy and just some of the key technology pieces, Canvas, some of the key technology pieces that staff would need this year. And then one of the things we discovered a few years back is that we were killing these poor new people with a lot of sit and get, but not really providing an opportunity for them to apply their new learning. And so we have broken up our days, providing more time for them to be out in their classrooms. Each of our new staff members has a mentor assigned to them. And so they spent then from 10:30 until the end of the day on Tuesday with their mentors. And it really was kind of catching up on what happens in Sherwood, what's been happening, acclimating to their classrooms, doing some planning for the year. And every year they comment that it's one of their favorite parts of the week. They not only get to build a relationship with someone they'll be spending time with throughout the year, but they learn a lot and prepare to hit the ground running during in-service week. Day 2, we invited our classified staff to join us, and Dr. Cordy always starts that day masterfully by walking them through really what's been happening in Sherwood, kind of where we are. Oftentimes we'll talk about our strategic plan, our district goals. This year, as always, she talked a lot about relationships and why relationships are so important to us in Sherwood. She spent some time with them, walking them through the personality compass, as you all now have become familiar with, talking about how we use it in Sherwood, how it came to be, and then had us, after providing some explanation, move to the area that most fits, probably the direction that we're the most like. And, you know, every year I try to sneak into that south category, but she catches me and moves me back to north. We then talked about in our groups what the strengths are of each of the personalities, what the limitations are, and how we can use those effectively to work together. And so just as I felt like we saw in the day we spent time with the board working on this, it was really a productive time. And it's pretty cool then throughout the year to hear new staff members talking about those personality types and how that's impacting their work in Sherwood. On Wednesday, we spent some time then after that, just doing some work, my human resources team doing some work with staff members. And so we talked about things such as supervision and evaluation. We showed them where to find the things they would need, the tools they would need throughout the year. We talked about staff ethics and how staff ethics directly relate to life on social media, which, as we all know, is a big part of people's world today. It's always a fun conversation. I think it scares people just a little bit because they think differently than they have in the past about the fact that they've entered a profession where they're kind of in a fishbowl. Everyone watches them and everyone talks about what they're doing and what they're saying. And so it's important for them to be aware of that. But it ends up being a really good conversation. We then invited all of our district administrators to come and have lunch. And it's one of the highlights of that day, just watching our district administrators sit with all of our new staff members over lunch and just visit, share stories, share life. Of course, we were being very careful about social distancing and all of that, but people seemed very relaxed and seemed to really enjoy that time. And then after that, our licensed staff were able to go do some more work in their buildings, and our classified staff spent time with Jody Jacobs, going through things like the OSEA collective bargaining agreement, talking about what supervision and evaluation looks like for our classified staff, some of the same work that we did with our licensed staff during other times. And then on Thursday, the last day of New Staff Academy, Kyler Pace, who you met earlier tonight, and who is our new SEA president, joined me in talking through some of the key pieces of the SEA collective bargaining agreement. And then we also talked about conflict resolution. We think it's really important for new staff to know kind of the practices and protocols if they struggle or if someone hurts their feelings or they're offended, what to do with that and how to courageously address that. As Kyler mentioned earlier tonight, it's another one of the highlights of the week. I think it really exemplifies the collaborative relationship we've had with SEA and with OSEA. Typically, OSEA joins Jody, but Patina wasn't available this year. But you know, we just so appreciate having the relationship with our union members in Sherwood that we have, and we have found that it's not typical in school districts, and so we appreciate that and we value that. Kyler's doing an amazing job, by the way. Our secondary folks then were able to go back out into their classrooms for the duration of that day, and our elementary people had a bit more professional development with teaching and learning. And it was really around things like how to teach math and reading using our adopted curriculum. And so I think, you know, all in all, it was really a good week. I think it's 3 days well spent. We end up hearing a lot of very positive comments from new staff following New Staff Academy, and they call out specific things like their time with mentors. They call out appreciating having a little bit of an understanding of what a collective bargaining agreement is and how it works and how it can represent them in this profession. They call out things like, you know, understanding technology before moving into in-service week and having some time in their classrooms to get set up so that they feel like they can hit the ground running. They also meet a lot of people, so they don't enter that first day of in-service week not knowing anyone and wondering where to go and who to talk to. And so I think it's time well spent, it's money well spent, and something that we hope to continue. I do hope you have an opportunity this year to get out into some classrooms and to meet some of these people, because I think they're pretty phenomenal. Questions?
Looks like you're off the hook. Thank you so much. And
Thank
really
you.
excited for the new folks that have joined the district. So we appreciate you sharing that. Okay. Okay, for those of you that have presented tonight, it's been a long day. If you'd like to go, you certainly may while we do these last couple of things. And with that, I will turn the mic over to Mr. Bennett with our next action item.
Thank you, Chair Hecker. Dr. Cordy, Board of Directors. As you know, the Oregon School Boards Association regularly supplies us with policy updates to keep us in compliance with state law. Policy AGIA, Human Sexuality, AIDS, HIV, Sexually Transmitted Diseases, and Health Education is one of those policies. We've updated it several times over the course of the years to stay in compliance with state law. This is not one of those times we're bringing changes by OSBA. What we're bringing tonight is changes recommended by our health policy team to the existing adopted policy. And those changes really do two things. They clarify a little bit of language, like the word regularly comes out of the policy for how often it's reviewed, and biennially goes in because that's what the law actually says. But the biggest part of the policy is that it adds a section to the policy that states that we will have a parent notification process. The notification process, the plan of instruction, and the process for exempting students from health education is all made public on our website. So the piece that's added in policy or being recommended to being added to the existing policy is around transparency. And this policy is in the plan, in the health plan, and we'll putting it up for first read this week, tonight, and we'll bring it back for potential adoption and approval on October 13th. Questions?
Thank you.
And then Ms. Carroll will put the plan, she'll put the plan up that goes with this policy next.
Thank you, Dr. Cordy, Board Chair Hecker, and board members. We went through the comprehensive plan of health instruction. And so tonight I'm going to put it up for first read and review. And we will ask for approval at that of it at the next board meeting.
Great, thank you.
Madam Chair, can I
Question?
just say for people that may be watching this on replay and wonder why isn't there a presentation, go back and watch the work session. It'll be posted, take you all through all of the detail. The team did an excellent job providing that to us a few hours ago.
Perfect, great reminder, thank you. Okay, with that, we will get to number 8 and instead of where I was going to put it in the agenda, and we'll start with Director Nyangaro.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on a couple of things that I've heard about recently, and one of them is bullying in the school district, and I think it's really important that we address this and root it out. I also want to be careful that we're addressing the root causes of the bullying, not just the symptoms. You know, we tend to the bully, but we don't always tend to the bully. We need to figure out why they're bullying. I mean, bullying essentially is it's somebody dehumanizing another person, and we need to figure out what's going on there. When I think back, almost all the bullies that I witnessed growing up had home lives that were often chaotic or in some cases abusive. This was just my observation. I'm not saying that's always the case, but again, it's just something we should have our thumb on that pulse. You know, when I was a kid, I witnessed brutal bullying, and some of my biggest regrets some of the biggest regrets in my adult life was that I wish I had done more when I witnessed the bullying. We should not just deal with the bullied and the bully, we should also deal with all the kids in the entire district so that we could teach them how to identify the bullying and what they should do when they witness it. It should be a district-wide effort, and every kid should be involved in resolving that. So those are the points I wanted to make on that. Another complaint I've heard is, I think we touched on it, the public comments, was the raised fist. So I've been contacted by individuals who were in the high school, and they were very disturbed to see that some classrooms were openly displaying the clenched fist. So I said to myself, well, I'm not entirely sure what the clenched fist symbolizes. So I went ahead, did a quick Wikipedia, and I pulled some excerpts from that, and all the excerpts that I read here are cited. So if you want to go see that, look at that for yourself, that's up to you. But it says the raised fist or the clenched fist is a long-standing image of mixed meaning, often a symbol of political solidarity. It is also a common symbol of communism. The black fist, which I heard was seen, is also known as Black Power Fist, a logo generally associated with Black nationalism, Black pride, solidarity, and socialism. Its most widely known usage is by the Black Panther Party, a Black Marxist group in the 1960s. The fist symbol can occasionally be used by competing political movements. In contrast to the above examples, a white fist, also known as the Aryan fist for white power fist. It's a logo generally associated with white nationalism. So I'm not saying that maybe the teachers don't know that that's what it symbolizes. Maybe they do, I don't know. But I feel like it's something that shouldn't be openly displayed in any of our schools. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Director Adamson.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Hecker and members of the board. A couple of things. One, I just want to say I'm just really grateful for the very positive start to school that we've had. I know that I've seen a lot of concern about traffic, but you know what? That's a sign that our community is very engaged and wanting to get their kids to school. A lot of excitement about the first day. I have to say that I also, in my own household, have a mole in Mr. Mitchell's homeroom class who tells me that they were very concerned that, you know, he's the principal, so it might be very strict, but that he was pretty cool. So I just want to pass that along, Mr. Mitchell. Apparently you're very cool, according to my high school student. So it's just a really positive, happy time for kids to be back in class. And I just really want to thank everyone in this room and all of the teachers who have just contributed to that, all of the classified staff that have really made it possible for kids to get the support that they need and start off in a really positive way, and just really, really grateful for that. I'm also really grateful for the professional development that really helps our schools start off in the right way, with a good culture, with understanding each other, building relationships, and really trying to appreciate the different perspectives that our students come into school with, because I think building those relationships, creating that moment where students understand each other and understand their teachers, and really being able to create connections, has to start with us understanding that not everyone comes to school in the same way. In Sherwood, we look a lot alike, but we aren't. And so I think it's very helpful for us to be thinking about what do our schools look like and how do we work together. And so I'm really glad to hear that there was a lot of time spent on that. And also grateful to hear that the culture of care work that started in the elementary is expanding into middle school and high school. that gets at the issues of not only inclusivity, but how do we build stronger relationships and avoid those bullying behaviors and really try and understand where each kid is coming from and meeting their needs. So very excited about that. And I think that I hope that as this board continues to meet and as the year continues on, that we continue to focus on the work that we need to do, but also continue to assume positive intent. I think that our teachers and our staff and our district are working extremely hard. And I would beg of the community, give us some grace. It has been 18 months since we were back in school for many kids. They're starting at the middle school for the very first time or in the high school for the very first time. It's going to take us a little while to sort everything out. And the more grace that you can extend, I think the better our district will be. And as we seek to understand and instead of making assumptions, the better off we'll model that behavior for our kids. So that's all I have to share.
Thank you. Director Thorne?
Hi, everybody. Well, this was a really awesome night. I really enjoyed hearing from everybody. My cheeks hurt. I don't know if that ever happens to any of you, but when you smile a lot, and that's what I was doing, then my cheeks start to hurt. So a few things I want to say, and I always write it down because I get nervous when I talk in front of people or cameras. So, but I just want to say that, much has happened since our last meeting. School's in session. It's totally awesome. My kids are so excited. They're having a great time. Honestly, before the pandemic, when they were in school full time, I'd be like, how was your day? It was fine. Now it's like, it was so great. They just have so many more positive things to share because much like when somebody said before, appreciating the small things, that we forgot and we took for granted. So it's just really great to hear their enthusiasm. And, yes, traffic is a pain. I go through it every day, but I'm hopeful it'll get better. So I just want to give a big, huge shout out to our administrators and our school staff and our bus drivers and teachers and everybody under the sun for making that happen. I was at the football game Friday. That was a great time. I loved watching the kids have school spirit together and be together. And somebody had a horse or something they were running around and everybody was cheering. It was hysterical and awesome. And I got to meet a lot of teachers that night too. And that was really great. I love meeting parents and teachers alike. And I'm always going to welcome that. My door is always open. I love getting to know everybody. And I hope I'll get to know everybody really, really, really well throughout the year. So I'm going to try to be really quick because I know you guys are all exhausted. I'm exhausted too. So if I talk too fast, that's why. But I just want to say that parent, student, and community feedback is extremely important. I value that a lot. And so I do want to take this opportunity, much like Duncan did and Jessica has, to just touch on some of that because without collaborating, where are we going to go, right? So obviously, there was the halftime show. I heard a lot about that. I do agree with some of the feedback that I got from the community. Our students do listen to a wide variety of music, but I will have to say that I do agree with the parents that we heard from. This is a family and community event. There's so much music that we can choose from for these performances. Why choose a controversial song with a controversial singer when we can all just be together and happy and choose something positive? I will say I really appreciated Mr. Mitchell's awesome and respectful response and how quickly that happened. That was great. So thank you for that. I've heard a little bit about this OHA student health survey. I have to be honest, I don't know much about it. I'm looking into it. And thank you for answering all my questions so far on it. I do want to touch on bullying too. And this is where I'll it's probably going to be a theme that I might get emotional sometimes through these, but it's no secret that we've had a lot of reports of bullying in our schools. It's only been a week. I personally saw pictures of an incident where a student's backpack and entire back was covered in food that had been thrown at him. And that really broke my heart to see that. These kids are so excited to go back to school and to hear about some of the stuff that they're experiencing really breaks my heart. Our kids have been cooped up for a long time. It's been really stressful, and our kids should not feel scared to go to school. When at school, they should feel safe. I believe that this is a prime example of how our kids need us to lead by example. It's no secret either. There's been a lot of division in this town. Our kids hear us. They hear so much more than we think that they hear. And it's really important that we model the behavior that we want to see from them as parents and as leaders. I want to encourage parents to talk to your kids about the importance of kindness and understanding amongst their peers, because this is presenting itself to be a large concern of the community. I'm encouraged to hear that the district has heard these concerns already and is working on it. So thank you for that. I have received some feedback on the Orbit program, and it's good feedback. So I'm excited to share some of that at a later time. I also have some things I'd like to note on about the raised fist, and I'll be quick again because I know you guys are tired. But I have some concerns over the display of the raised fist that can be found in multiple hallways and classrooms in our schools. I do understand that this means something positive to a lot of people. That fact is not lost on me. But it also means something negative to a lot of people. And I feel like that's when we all have the responsibility to stop and think. As we know, and as we witnessed more recently, as we're growing to understand each other and create this inclusion and equity and acceptance and all of that, we have to think differently. And so we know that different symbols mean different things to different people. If we are going to allow symbols in our schools, we need to be certain that these symbols are not offensive to anyone. So while the raised fists may mean something positive to some, it does in fact mean something negative to others. For those not familiar with the history behind this symbol, a simple search will produce results and stuff that I learned in history, that it was used in countries and movements that represent Marxism, communism, such as the Spanish War, Soviet Union, Iran, just to name a few. We have many members in our community who either themselves or family members sacrificed everything to get out of communist regimes. And that includes students at our schools who are walking these halls every day and may see these symbols. They've heard stories from their grandparents, from their aunts, all kinds of family members of what they went through. And so imagine what they feel like when they see this symbol. From some of the feedback I've received, they feel excluded, they feel shame, and they feel like they can't speak up because it's not the popular thing to do right now. And they feel like if they do speak up, then people will look at them differently. This is very sad to me. I don't want any student or teacher or staff or parent to feel this way from something we as a district are displaying in our schools. So in the spirit of the equity and inclusion work that we're doing and the district's hard work towards achieving these things, I personally would love to see this symbol taken down from schools. I'm not going to motion for that because I don't feel like I know wholeheartedly that our administration and our teachers and our staff want everybody to feel included and represented and safe. And so I feel confident that people will have more discussions. I'd like to see people do more, maybe some research, maybe more research, and just ask yourselves, is it fair to all of our students to display this? And I'll stop with that. So I don't like forcing or motioning things because I feel like we all need to work together. And so I'm just going to leave it at that. And then lastly, like I said in the beginning, hearing from the community is very important. I think it's extremely instrumental in maintaining the integrity of our district and encouraging open lines of communication. While I do respect the desire to keep people safe, I do think we need to also find balance in being accessible to the community. So therefore, as long as our meetings are virtual only, I think we should allow for public comment to be in person by allowing only the commenter in, one at a time, to be able to speak to us and voice their concerns to us directly. You guys do a great job reading the comments, so this isn't anything on you, but they do come across differently when they're coming from the person directly. There's passion behind that. There's feeling behind that. They're received differently. I definitely know I hear it differently. There's a couple other districts that have implemented this where, you know, in the spirit of safety, they're not having meetings public, but they are allowing people to wait outside and come in one at a time and do the public comment and say what they need to say. So I would like to move to allow in-person public comment under those guidelines.
Madam Chair, I would just like to say that I believe that that motion is out of order.
That's gonna have to be tabled for a later date. It's not a time in our meeting where we would do a motion, and that is, obviously that's, you know, an element of surprise and not something that we're gonna add. There needs to be notice given. So we
Okay.
can address that later.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. So again, thank you to all of our teachers and our administrators and our school staff for making this first week back amazing. You guys are just all amazing. And that concludes everything I have to say for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Hawkins?
All right. Hi, guys. I look out and see all your friendly faces, and I am so encouraged by all the work you guys are doing. I know it is tireless hours of putting everything together and thinking it through to get all these kids back in school. My kids, just like everybody else's, have been so excited to return to school and have had nothing but positive things to say about their schools. I know I've heard incidences of bullying, and I don't want to downplay that. That is serious for those kids, and their parents should absolutely, you know, work with their kids to advocate with their schools and figure out a situation that works best for them. But what I can say is that I think that, much like Director Thorne said, as parents, we can absolutely encourage our kids to be kind kids, to be good friends, to be positive role models. My kids are not perfect. They make choices every day that I do not love. But I know that when I send them out the door, I always tell them, be a friend. There's kids who don't love school. There's kids who had a horrible experience last year. So be mindful. Not everyone makes good friends. Not everyone talks to people. Not everybody's happy. And try to go out and do the best you can, you know, be a good kid. Look out for kids who can't look out for themselves. So I think that we really need to work on that as parents and not be so confrontational and angry and discuss such negative behaviors in front of our kids. And I would just really encourage us to try to be a role model for that and to bring our kids together and just model that behavior. So I won't drag it out. I don't have a million other comments to make, but I just think that's something that every one of us can do. I know you guys are doing it, and I know there's a lot of work being done in the schools. There's curriculum built on it, but at home as parents, we can make a really large impact with our own kids, and that's what we need to be doing. So that's all I will say. Thank you guys so much for your time tonight.
Thank you. I just want to end, and, you know, just thank you so much. I honestly, this summer, I think we can all probably say that there were times we didn't know this day was going to happen. And I'm so thankful it did. Honestly, up until the very last minute, I don't know that I slept through the night without worrying about, you know, going back to comprehensive distance learning. I do have to thank Ms. Andrig and Dr. Cordy for putting together an incredible 21-minute video that, you know, when I turned it on, I have to tell you, to be honest, I kind of went, oh, 21 minutes. Wow, it's really long. And then I wished it had kept going, because I found myself feeling so much joy to see the faces and to hear the comments of so many people that I've known. And really the children were so impactful along with everyone else. But I think I look back on that, and through that whole 18 months, I think we all felt such isolation. But to hear people expressing the same things I had been feeling all along, and to be reminded of how much every one of us went through, whether you work for the district, whether you're on the board, whether you're a parent, a child, it was so powerful to me to just reflect on that and think, okay, wow, we did this, you know, good, bad, ugly, whatever, but we did this and have come through the other side, hopefully on a positive place to being back together and appreciating that. So for me, that was just a really cathartic healing moment overall, and just so powerful at the folks that are in this district and And again, it was a great reminder to me of why we all do this. And that's ultimately, it is 100% for the kids. So thank you so much for putting that together. And I won't watch it just once, I'll watch it again. So with that, I believe we have concluded the agenda. Our next work session for the board will be on September 29th, and we will be addressing school funding and setting some board norms. So with that, we're adjourned. Thank you.